Good morning and welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey with some hires made later last night. The Cowboys coaching staff is pretty much set. We're going to break it down, look at some of the pros and cons, and grade it as well. Let's begin with the higher-ups on the coaching staff side. Mike McCarthy is both the head coach and the play caller on offense. Brian Schottenheimer gets the offensive coordinator designation. We'll go one time through, then spend some more time on some of these coaches. Dan Quinn's back as your defensive coordinator, as is John Fassel as the special teams coordinator. Mike Solari is the new offensive line coach, replacing Joe Philbin. Scott Tolzien and Jeff Blasko have received promotions as members of the original Mike McCarthy staff in Dallas. Tolzien was the offensive assistant. Blasko was the assistant O-line coach. Now they're the quarterback's coach and running back's coach. And by the way, Blasko also has run game coordinator in his title. Robert Prince, Lunda Wells back at wide receivers and tight ends, respectively. Joe Whitt remains the defensive passing game coordinator / secondaries coach. We condensed it down because that's too long there. Durde is the defensive line coach. Scott McCurley is back. I'll explain what I mean as the linebackers coach. Al Harris is the DB's coach, and Cannon Matthews has gotten a promotion from just kind of general quality control side to assistant DB's coach alongside Al Harris. Some other new hires, all but one of these is new, by the way. Sharrif Floyd is the new assistant defensive line coach, replacing Leon Lett. Ramon, I think I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. Ramon Chinyoung, who was a Houston high school coach for a long time, is the assistant offensive line coach now. Will Harriger, who was at USC, worked with Brian Schottenheimer in Seattle in the past, takes over as the offensive assistant. Darian Thompson, Cowboys legend, you can spam that in the comments if you want to, is the new assistant linebackers coach. Harold Nash is back as the strength and conditioning coordinator. There are a bunch of other quality control analytics jobs that I'm not really going to mention because it's just not relevant enough, I suppose, in the end. We're going to go more in depth on all the coaching staff's additions, the overall retentions, the hires, etc. But I want you guys to grade this Cowboys coaching staff for me. A, B, C, D, or F. Be honest with me at the pinned comments of today's video. So if an ad break happens to come here on YouTube, cool. Take advantage of it. Head down there, grade this Cowboys coaching staff A, B, C, D, or F, especially if the ad break comes here on YouTube. Let's focus in on Mike McCarthy because there's nothing more important about this coaching staff than the head man and the offensive play caller. He's taking over as the Cowboys play caller, which I remember when he first got hired, it was like, okay, Mike's going to be your play caller. Wasn't the case. He either chose to keep or got stuck or maybe some blend of both with Kellen Moore. And overall, this entire coaching staff restructure is about Mike McCarthy. If Mike McCarthy does a great job as the play caller, if the one voice, as opposed to elements of what Mike wants to do West Coast-wise, of what Kellen wants to do, of some of the holdovers from Linehan Garrett era in terms of the play calling and design and structure, if one voice ends up leading to more consistent results, then it's all worth it. But there is plenty of risk involved here. I mean, they've overhauled significant members of this coaching staff. I think maybe more or less forced Mike to get rid of some of his buddies, and then he brought in some other buddies, and there's a fine line between, hey, I'm hiring people I know and I trust versus I'm hiring my friends and buddies, and that line, it's all based on the results. Whether that's fair or not, that's how we judge coaches in the NFL. So what is your confidence level in Mike McCarthy as the play caller for your Dallas Cowboys? Scale this for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let's focus in now on one Brian Schottenheimer, who is the non-play calling offensive coordinator. He worked more with Dan Quinn this past year. He was the Cowboys analyst in kind of a off-field role, kind of advanced scouting, basically. He's had a long career, the son of Marty, as a coordinator. Was the Seahawks OC. There's an overlap with Dan Quinn there. Keep that in mind. A lot of some of these offensive hires are less about, well, he knows Dan Quinn, and more about, well, they actually know Schottenheimer. And that's the big aspect there. Georgia OC, Rams OC, Jets OC. It's had a long career that, for the most part, has been better run games, I think matters, but fairly average offensive results. Although, who you have, of course, significantly matters there. We'll go more in depth on the other coaches, but first, today's show is sponsored by Cultivate, the free browser extension that brings transparency to your Amazon shopping experience. Cultivate shows you the brand, seller, or product origin and identifies local alternatives that support local community efforts while saving you money. With over 50% of Amazon U.S. sellers based in China, Cultivate offers a way to avoid trickery from these sellers and help keep money in the U.S. economy. Cultivate offers alternatives that are on average 30% less expensive than Amazon without any additional costs such as Amazon Prime. It can even identify local alternatives that you can pick up the same day. Cultivate users earn free donations as rewards for using the extension, and the more you use it, the more you earn in donations by increasing your level. In fact, Cultivate donates 51% of the revenue they make on your purchase. So what are you waiting for? Go to wecultivate.us/chatsports and download Cultivate for free. Let Cultivate bring transparency, savings, and community support to your Amazon shopping journey. Support the show and download with our link. It'll be in the comments section and the description of today's video. It's wecultivate.us/chatsports. The big news for Dallas defensively is that Dan Quinn somehow has returned once again. Despite interest from Denver, again, and other coaching jobs, Dan Quinn chose to stick around in Dallas. He doesn't want to jump for just any head coaching job, and there will be the lingering questions of, is Dan Quinn going to be the Cowboys head coach in 2024? We'll find out how the season goes on there. Let's go back now to the other assistant coaches here. Mike Solari, the newest offensive line coach. Joe Philbin, plenty of speculation, I think fairly valid, that he was forced out. Some of the Mike guys got forced out, and then Mike forced out some of the Jerry guys, or the Jones boys, I should say, to a certain extent there. Solari knows time in Seattle, fairly impressive meeting stuff in terms of drawing a blank on the exact word, but coaching together and do not conferences, but something along that line. We'll see how it works out. He was out of the NFL last year, which might raise some red flags there. Scott Tolzien, as expected, has been named the quarterback's coach. He's been on staff since day one in an offensive analyst role. Mike promoting someone he trusts at the quarterback spot there, so nothing too shocking on that front. The Jeff Blasko one is interesting. When the Cowboys had made the move to hire a new assistant offensive line coach in Ramon, I'm like, okay, Blasko's out. That makes sense. He was a Philbin guy. Well, he's now the running backs coach and gets the title of run game coordinator, which pretty big jump for an assistant offensive line coach. He has never coached running backs in the past, which does raise, I think, a significant note there. I will also make note that an offensive line background and the run game coordinator aspect isn't that different. And I think in general, we put too much emphasis on who the position coaches are. They can certainly help. They can certainly hurt. I don't think they're as make or break as some might think, and it shouldn't lead to drastic fall off if we're worried about that. Now, if you want Cowboys videos, not just every single day, but 8, 9, 10 a week, this is the right spot for you here on the Cowboys Report. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@Cowboys TV. All right, the other defensive assistants here, Joe Whitt, Aden, Durde, they're all back. Scott McCurley is an interesting one because he is replacing, kind of, George Edwards. So George Edwards' title was, senior defensive assistant. But he basically ran the linebackers room. But Scott McCurley, as he's had of day one under the Mike McCarthy staff, they overlapped in Green Bay together, he has always been the linebackers coach. But now I guess he's got the linebackers coach title and the power this time around. Al Harris is back, and Cannon Matthews gets a basically quality control promotion into the assistant DB's coach. It was the whole Edwards linebackers thing was always pretty weird because he ran it, but McCurley had the title. Speaking of Edwards, the losses of note on this Cowboys staff, which we know them more because they've been the coaches. We're more familiar with them, right? Kellen Moore is now the Chargers off the court. He also brought, by the way, Doug Nussmeier as the quarterback's coach. George Edwards and Skip Peete both went to Tampa. Pete's the RB's coach. Edwards gets the outside linebackers coach title. As of filming, Joe Philbin remains unemployed. So here's the big question for me. Did the Cowboys coaching staff get better? It kind of comes down to, is McCarthy going to be better than Kellen as far as I'm concerned? But did it get better? Why for yes and for no in the comment section. All right, the other various members, mostly new hires here. Sharrif Floyd, who I wanted desperately in that draft, and it helped lead to Will McClay taking over with where they handled it there. He is now the assistant defensive line coach. Actually coached Dan Quinn, or not coached, played under Dan Quinn at Florida, has done some things in the past around the organization, so he replaces Leon Lett. Ramon Chinyoung is the new assistant O-line coach, was a quality control guy in Denver last year. Will Harriger, who has spent some time with both Dan Quinn and Schottenheimer in Seattle/Atlanta, is on board as an offensive assistant. He'll kind of take over the Scott Tolzien role of focusing mainly on the quarterback's side of things. Got some rave reviews for his work with Caleb Williams this past year. Darian Thompson, the former safety who was kind of more of a box safety and really a special teams guy, he takes over as the assistant linebackers coach, which is pretty fun there. The Cowboys legend. The assistant coach role, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that Sharrif Floyd also has a quality control title as part of this. These roles, don't worry too much either way. They're very, very small roles. Harold Nash back once again, of course, as conditioning coordinator. Hopefully this Cowboys coaching staff gets Dallas further. The expectations are high. You know, playoff win is not enough. It's about getting to the NFC Championship game. And that's a very high and challenging bar to meet.